Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Up With That, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with community access television? What is community access television? Who are the producers? What is their goal? What is their dream? And why should you watch community public access television? Well, after tonight, you will be watching, I guarantee you. Well, when we think of the standard community access television, at least this is a stereotype, and I want to emphasize that. It's the lady with the dancing birds, or more, I guess, larger, Wayne's World. Well, that's not what's going on here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of heart and soul going on to these shows. And tonight, we're going to talk to 4 producers who do this all the time, with heart and soul. Please welcome our first 2 guests. This is Mark Albertson from Tech Closeup. How you doing?
All right.
And Shannon Grissom from Your Walls Have Soul.
Hi.
So, let's start off with the beginning. Why did you get, what is community access television to you?
Well, community access television to me, Andrew, is the opportunity to, take an idea, a concept, a passion, and be able to get it on the air successfully and have it aired on a regular basis throughout the community in which you live or work.
And part of that passion is that the community is involved in actually creating the television.
That's a good point, yeah.
I mean, that's the wonderful part of it that I really enjoy. So you can be involved in on-screen or off-screen. It's wonderful.
Right, and it really is. It's a community within its own community.
Yeah.
Everybody's working together. Everybody's here because they want to be here. They want to get involved. So let's learn about your show. Tell me about your show and why you decided to produce a show in the first place.
Sure. Well, Tech Closeup is a half-hour monthly program that covers the full scope of the high-tech community from Silicon Valley. We produce our show with the idea of focusing not just on the big companies like Google or Cisco or Microsoft, but some of the smaller and middle-sized firms that are doing some very innovative things in the tech arena that a lot of people may not have heard about.
And they would probably only get a lot of the opportunity on your show, and if it's not big media, sometimes it's just, well, we know about that. It gets squashed. And what was the inspiration for your show?
My show, Give Your Walls Some Soul, I really wanted to get people excited about creating. And I do that through a painting show and show people how to paint. But I really just want to get people turned on about doing creative work.
So when you first heard about the idea of community access television, and actually we could even start with, how did you first hear about it? Let's start with you because I kind of know your story.
Well, I was at a chamber mixer, and Suzanne St. John Crane came down to the mixer and spoke about community access television. And my
she's like a goddess of community access
she's
television.
awesome.
She's that.
Yeah, she's very inspirational. She's just very supportive. So she came down and told us all about it. And my first thought was, woohoo, let's go do it. And it was very, I didn't know anything about, I didn't even program my VCR at that point.
Right.
And now I run camera, and so I do both front and back end stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
And so, and yourself?
Well, I've worked in the high-tech industry for the better part of the last 20 years, and back in 2004, a group of people in the kind of Palo Alto Mountain View community approached me about producing a show that would cover the tech industry. And as things turned out that year, there were only a couple of shows at the time that were covering the high-tech world. They both went off the air.
Right.
So
I remember there was one,
there was Tech TV, there was another one on Channel 36, KICU. Well, they were gone, and suddenly there was this void where there was no coverage of certainly the largest industry in this area, as well as in California. And I thought, that was wrong, and the industry needed to be covered, but in a way that was interesting, entertaining, and informative, and involve the community the way public access can.
When you first think of your show, what process do you begin? What's the starting point? The starting point
is the underlying message that I want to convey for that is the common thread throughout the whole show. So even though I might be doing a painting of a Harley, I may talk about reflections and how you're reflective in your personality and that kind of thing. And I really want to show people that it's okay to screw up and fail and keep going. So I'll throw paintings out on the show.
Right.
And, it's
because none of us have ever screwed up in our lives before, right? I mean, so.
And it's working. I got this 80-year-old man called me, and he said for his birthday he was going to go out and buy paints and start painting. So that's when I knew that what I was doing was really working.
I mean, it's true. For my own show, it's when I get even sometimes, angry phone calls about, airing something that they don't particularly care for. But, there's somebody out there that is waiting to see something like that because they're curious about it, and the media doesn't play a lot of things fairly. I mean, that's why I'm here, to allow people the right to be heard, at least to be heard. It's a scary world if we can't be heard. How about your process? Because you're probably a little bit more difficult to put together a show.
It's a little more complicated because we do 3 or 4 segments in each half-hour show each month. Because we've been on the air a couple of years now, though, we're starting to get much more widely known in the high-tech community. A lot of people are coming to us and pitching stories. But for us, it's a nice problem to have, but we have to be somewhat discriminating in terms of what we choose because we're in a visual medium. And a lot of technologies might seem really interesting in the real kind of techno geek world, but it doesn't translate well on TV. So we try to find stories that have what I call a kind of a gee whiz or wow factor, where the average viewer would look at that and go, I didn't know they could do that. Or what an amazing technology that's going to really make a difference.
And technology is so amazing. We're going to take quick clip looks at both of your shows right now, and then we'll come right back. And this is Tech Closeup and Give Your Wall Some Soul. So check it out. This is what's happening on Community Access Television.
The folks here at the Tech Museum in San Jose, California, hold a special awards ceremony to honor those great innovators who dream up technologies to change the world.
All under one roof today, we have people from across the country who are making a difference using technology. From one couple, for example, who makes sure that doctors in the far corners of the world are educated on the latest science. Another man uses cameras to allow people in villages in India and many other places tell stories about their neighborhoods.
Where do we have some red? We have all kinds of red too. So let's find a cool red on this side and just throw in a spot of color over here. This is going to be a very loose painting. And these are just really abstract shapes, and they're reflecting off the objects that I had around. Now, if you look at the reference photo, I'm not painting the entire photo. All I cared about, I showed you all of the objects in the photo so you could see how I arrived at all the color in the pot, but all I'm going to paint is the pot itself. So I'm looking at basic color shapes. And they're like, yeah, just paint the pot. We want to see the pot come alive. Well, the pot won't come alive unless I do the background right.
Well, then looking at the clips, you see that there's a lot of heart and soul, a lot of work, a lot of love. What do you want people to leave after viewing your show? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to think about? What is the big thing that you hope to accomplish for the community or for yourself or for whatever?
Well, for Tech Closeup, what we try to strive for is that people walk away with a better appreciation for what high technology is and what it means. There's a lot of mystery around high tech. I think many people that have computers probably today use maybe a tenth of what they can do. So what we try to do is go in and demystify that a little bit. From the community standpoint, in each show, we try to cover also what employees or companies are doing in the local community. There's always a segment where we try to focus on that.
Which is very important. For you?
For me, at the end of the show, I want them to feel good and say, I could do this. I can go out and do this. And so that they lose their fear and do it.
Do you ever get nervous when you're filming? You ever get...
Okay.
Let's talk about that. There's a certain stress in television.
When I first started the show, one of the cameramen said, why don't you picture everybody naked? I said, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So then he was this very large man, and he would do this ballerina dance, and he said, this is the naked dance. So he would do that at the start of every show, and I would just crack up. And many episodes later, I don't really get that nervous anymore. But yeah, it's...
Especially, I would think, because you're working with, fine brushes.
There's pressure to have the painting actually look like something. It's a lot of pressure.
That'd be a little pressure.
Yeah, because I shoot live to tape, no editing. So there is a lot of pressure there. But that's part of the fun.
Yeah, I remember on my very first show, I had arranged to have 3 different people from different companies come to the studio where I was producing it and tape their interviews with us. We were in the studio at the time, although we no longer are. And I thought, my God, what if no one shows up? You know, here I am, I've put all this time and effort in, the station was really behind me to do it, and you know, these are busy people. They might think, public access, I don't know if I really want to spend the time. They all showed. But that was probably the most nervous moment, you know, because it was the very first show, and I was really concerned about that.
I did a show one time, me and the director and one sound person. We had 3 cameras in lockdown because it was around finals and it was associated with the school. So it's only to say it can be done. You know, there miracles can happen. You just can't move around very much. What are some of the funniest things that have happened that you can think of? Because there's always, you know, there are things happen. Okay, you know, my own show, there's been things, sets have fallen down. You know, things happen.
Well, in our show, it's kind of legendary, and I've got 2 great co-hosts, real professionals, but one of them is notorious for getting lost on the way to a shoot, even leaving a shoot. And we've been shooting our stand-ups at the Tech Museum for over a year and a half now in downtown San Jose.
Right.
There was a time he got lost going there after 6 months when we had been doing that. Literally got lost. We had to direct him in. So that's kind of a little note of humor in regards to how we've been producing our show and some of the stories behind it.
The show has to go on.
No matter what, even when he gets lost.
How about you?
I think I got the most phone calls when it was summer and there was a gnat, and I was just starting the painting, and it's flying around my face right between me and the painting, and it just wouldn't leave me alone. And I finally just, you know, normally I try to be professional, pretend like these things aren't happening, but I was not in the mood. So I smacked the canvas and just said, "You can't live here." And I thought, okay, the Gnats Rights Group are going to call me.
Well, you know, you got...
But I did get a lot of calls after that.
And that was art, too.
It was art, and I left it. I left it in the painting.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's you have actually a video documentation of that as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, so for the people who are looking to get into this, and you know, I'm for all kinds of shows. I think everybody has something to say. I really do. I think everything is important. There's an audience for everything. What would you say to the people who are toying with this idea right now? You know, becoming a producer in community access. So, you know, taking that next step. What's your advice?
I gotta tell you, it's fun to watch TV, but it can't compare to getting up off your chair, going down to the studio, and making it.
Oh, no kidding.
It doesn't matter whether you're behind the camera, on camera, no matter what you're doing, it's a blast. So just go for it.
Yeah, and I would echo that too. I mean, I was told very early on that if I can put a show together, get it taped, and then get it distributed, that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
And it really is. And once you do that, a lot of people are afraid to take those steps. But I think part of the advice that I would give is, you know, follow your passion. If there's something you really enjoy and you really like doing, it will translate very well in this medium. And that's what community access can provide in its fullest way.
And does provide.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're going to take a short studio break, and we're going to come back with 2 other producers who have 2 also equally unique and interesting shows. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with What's Up With That. Well, welcome back to What's Up With That. We're here talking about community access television, and we have 2 outstanding community access producers to highlight our extravaganza tonight on community access television. This is Mel Van Dusen, and you do a show called Present! Exclamation mark!
Right.
I got that right. And we have Keith Statenfield, and he does Keith Explains. So let's begin with why did you get into this community access?
I was a caregiver, and I found that I was stuck at home, and by caring for a relative, I was actually disabling her. And so to get out of the house, I wanted to travel, and I couldn't do that. It would take too much time away. So I decided to take courses here so that I could produce my own show. Yeah, and examine things that I was interested in, and that to me was the equivalent of travel.
You know, well, it's true. I mean, it's how you choose your travels, huh?
Right.
Keith?
I lost a bet. It's really, I have a very lazy probation officer, and he doesn't want to leave his home. So if I do a show once a month, he can turn the TV on, make sure I'm still in the area.
Yeah, and that's important,
and
because that's kind of like going to become the new, with Big Brother coming into the White House.
It's exactly the same.
It will be, it actually makes sense. It's economical too. So, what kind of shows do you do?
Present explores creativity and spirituality through interviews with people who are pursuing their unique vision.
Okay. Give me an example. Like, what would be an example of a guest you might have?
Okay, I interviewed PMH Atwater, who is who has the largest database of near-death experiencers in the world, and she's written 7 books.
Wow.
And she had 3 near-death experiences, and they.
I was going to say, was she deadly?
No, she's very charming. She's wonderful, but her experiences changed her completely. She lost her fear of death and her fear of living, and so she just pursues what she wants to do and lives very intensely and very creatively. And I think if people can, take off their blinders and open up to the possibility that such a thing exists, maybe the same thing can happen to them.
See, that's the importance of community access television, because at least it allows viewers the opportunity to, as you said, actually take off their blindfold as well and explore the world, like you said, to travel.
Exactly.
And Keith?
My show is the exact opposite. There are no guests. It's just half an hour of pure me. Staring at the camera, talking about whatever pops into my mind from instant to instant.
Yeah, so it's sort of unscripted.
Unscripted stream of consciousness.
Written on the back
of
a
a
piece of
turn
paper.
the channel kind of show.
Yeah. Written on the back of a piece of paper on the way to the studio kind of thing.
Very frequently.
Been there a couple times. So when you interview your guests, and since your guests, and when you interview yourself, you're in or whatever. When you interview your guests, what kind of preparation do you do beforehand that to guarantee that you're getting across what you really want? I mean, your heart and soul.
I punch in their name on the internet. I do as much research as I can. If they've written books, I read the books and I take notes. And I try to come up with maybe between 8 and 12 questions, maybe more, that will cover the territory. Generally, I like to know where we're going to go, but I also leave enough room for it to be open and go in unexpected directions.
Right.
So I do a lot of research.
Yeah. Well, you have to. With some guests, you really have to be on your toes.
A friend of mine who's been doing this for a long time told me that she steers away from that. She just goes cold. And if she interviews people maybe a bit too much before, talks to them a bit too much before, that takes away from the spontaneity later. So this is something I'm playing with.
Well, it was something actually that we were taught actually in film school too, or in television school, that don't talk to your guests a lot because you get their best comments in the green room.
And
you don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
So Keith, now you're in a completely different format. So how do you prepare yourself for, yours must be grueling because you have a half hour of just
pretty much straight talking. So generally before the show, I drink a Coke or two. Gets the old caffeine level up, starts the brain racing.
Yeah.
I otherwise went cold turkey on caffeine a couple of years ago. So 2 Cokes can pretty much get my brain going really fast. Then usually I've got a wiki where I type little thoughts during the month about what I could talk about, and then I write them down on pieces of paper, and I bring the piece of papers to the show, and then generally while I'm reading and thinking about the first one on the show, I think of something else, and then I never get to my pieces of paper.
Yeah. Well,
so that's kind of how the average show goes.
So do you follow, what's your inspiration? Do you follow something you've seen? Do you just...
No, I'm like nothing else I've ever seen. I think there's
It's true.
I think there's a reason there aren't other shows like mine on television.
That reason may be what?
It's possible that I'm actually not very good.
Well, who knows? You got to go. I think that's what community television is about, and the fact that we're here tonight is a testimonial to the fact that it can be. But yet there are stereotypes about community television that we have to overcome. But I know some people say, it's whatever. The city governments, I might be ranting myself right now, but city governments have tried to say that, we don't have an importance here, or that we're the first to be cut when the budget cuts come. I say phooey to that, because people need to know stuff. We can't live in a blind world. What's one of the funniest situations that's happened on your show?
Well, I
Or
don't know if
unexpected even?
it was during a time when it was very cold. It was 47 degrees in this studio here.
Jeez.
The equipment froze. I was with my near-death person. She had to wait 3 hours for everything to unfreeze so that we could actually begin. We were under the hot lights, which I've never gotten used to. And throughout the whole thing, from beginning to end...
You had the Mardi Gras going on here, huh?
She never lost her composure. She was continually upbeat through the whole thing. And that told me something about where she was coming from.
Right. I mean, it's amazing, because sometimes things just don't go right.
And of course, cell phones go off, and you have to stop and begin over, and that's interesting.
And in my case, I'd say it's mostly when I'm doing the show. The director and the camera people all have headphones on, so I can be in the middle of a sentence and they'll all break up laughing. And it occurs to me that someone has said something very funny over the headphone, and I have no idea what it is, so I have to start searching backwards to realize what dumb thing I've said recently that they could have mocked. And then it'll roll through my brain what I said and what it means, but I got to keep going because...
Well, what can you do?
What can you do?
I think it's also funny when you're doing a show and you can hear the director through the headphones, and you say, can you move the camera to the left? You close up here. You're blah blah. You're got your camera on their feet. These things happen, and you're focusing, and you're in your deep, section of the show where it's the real meat of the show, and it's And then, of
Something
course,
terribly, terribly interesting is happening.
And for me, for some reason, I'm continually seeing this. And I don't know what this means yet. We're not in Oklahoma, and there's no tornadoes here, okay? So whatever this means is like...
Here's a clue. Remember television school? There was a Wednesday that you didn't get to? That's when they taught you that this means
wonder.
Stop talking.
I've been expecting a tornado in this place for a long time.
Andrew, what do you get out of your show?
I get out actually... I have fun, and I get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I love it. It's fun to do, but the thing I get most out of is I think that I want to empower people to speak up. So for me, it's being a school teacher, and I'm working with little kids all the time and telling them that they need to be empowered. Well, if little kids need to be empowered, adults need to be empowered too. I think the older we get into our comfortableness, and we're not, we shut down. A lot of people do.
Tunnel visions.
Yeah, I mean, and a closed mind is a closed society. So if I can empower people to come up and it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's naked belly dancers, that's good.
It was a great show. That was best ratings ever.
I'm telling you, people. If you've got erectile dysfunction, tune into my show and we'll chat, okay? Because we can chat here. It's a free place to chat. So to these producers who are watching the show, thinking, this sounds kind of cool. What's your advice? What do you say to them?
If you're not willing to have the process change your idea of who you are, then don't do it. But being a producer will take you into a direction that you never dreamed of before. You will meet people who change your life, and you will no longer think of yourself in the same way. You will change from it. There's something about watching yourself on TV. We can learn a lot. We don't know exactly how we come across, and once you see that, once you get over the shock of it, and are able to,
oh my God!
I know, really. Then that can be really transforming. Once you're able to be comfortable with yourself on TV, that can be a really big plus in your dealings with other people, to see how you really are.
Okay, we're going to look at a couple clips of your show, and we come right back and talk about community access television. So stay tuned.
PMH, what is unique about the near-death experience?
There you go. What excites me about the near-death experience, because so many people try to compare it to other types of experiences or other types of changing consciousness or altered consciousness, and they'll say, well, it's oxygen deprivation, or it's connected to ketamine or drugs or this or that. And then we talk about shamanic experiences and vision quests and spiritual experiences, and it's really kind of part of all of that. But what makes it unique is of all of these different experiences, it is the most intense, the most clear, the most coherent.
Cats leave a pampered existence, and part of the pampered existence has to do with technology. Now, I, ordering things off the internet guy, technology, you know, my whole house wired up, everything. I have 3 wireless base stations in my house, so I get great coverage everywhere. And my house is like tiny. So like I had to pick different channels for them, otherwise they'd interfere with each other, and that would totally screw up the reception. So cat-wise, cats have litter boxes, and litter boxes got to be cleaned, and that's part of having a cat that sucks. Unless you buy the automatic litter box, in which case there are batteries and plugs in the wall things, and it's kind of cool, you know. There's a litter box that automatically rakes and deposits in a container. Let's say no more about that part. The cat detritus, the icky cat stuff.
All right, we're back here, and what's up with that? We're talking about community access, and we're just about ready to wrap the show. One last question. When people watch your show and the show's done, what do you want them to leave with? What do you want them to have learned? What's your goal for the community?
Right. With regular commercial TV, people tend to become comatose. With my shows, I'm not supported by anybody. I can say exactly what I think. My guests can say exactly what they think. It breaks down the collective coma.
Right.
That's what I want.
Yeah, and that's great.
And my show also not supported by anyone but me. And it is just me saying whatever pops into my mind that I think might be kind of humorous, other people might want to say, and if I can do it, they can do it.
Right, and that's why we need to tell our city officials to keep funding community access television, because, like I said, there's an audience out there looking for things that they're not going to find on network television, and that's why we're here. Buddha, thank you so much for also joining us, and to our viewing audiences, watch community access television. There's a lot out there that you haven't seen and you need to see, because it's important. We're here actually helping all the community to learn, to open your eyes. And as always, if you're walking down the street and you see something interesting and you wonder to yourself, hey, what's up with that? Well, tune into our show, What's Up With That, and maybe you'll find exactly what you're looking for. We'll see you next week on What's Up With That. Good night, everybody.